What's the connection there? You said you're struggling with an eating disorder, and breathworks for some would feel like, I don't understand how that could work. Can you speak to that a little bit? Why was it beneficial?
Breathwork helps you access the subconscious mind, and it helps you access your emotions. So, or any kind of diagnosis is a symptom of a deeper issue, a deeper belief, a deeper trauma, a deeper belief about yourself.
When you're helping people with energy work, what does that mean exactly?
The coolest thing about energy work is it's like the ultimate way of taking your power back. If you are able to do energy work on yourself,
Welcome to American Gypsy Podcast. I'm your host, Gypsy, and today I have a special guest, Alyse Bacine. She is a breathwork expert with 23 years of experience, as well as a spiritual mentor and the CEO of Elise Breeds. Welcome to the show, Alyse.
thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to have you here. Before we get started, can you give a little background in what you do and how you got started with breathwork?
Yeah, sure. So I actually discovered breathwork when I was 19 years old. And it was something that really just drew me in, and I started practicing it and training in it at a very young age. And, by the time I was in my early 20s, I was teaching it and sharing it, and it had a profound impact on my life. And then I also became a school counselor. So I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I was a school counselor for over 10 years. So I have a lot of experience with trauma, working with traumatized children, and also, extensive experience with breath work and healing for so many years. So, over time, I developed my own breath work and trauma healing methodology called the metamorphosis method. And I in 2020, I started my business, and it was just kind of the perfect timing because I was a school counselor, and then I started it in 2020 in January, and then in March we all went home from school, so I really had the opportunity to dive fully into starting my business, and then it just really evolved very quickly. And then I left my job as a school counselor in December of 2020. So I've been full time in my business since then. But yeah, I've always just had a very strong knowing around trauma and how to help people heal trauma, coupled with my experience with it. It's just been something that I've developed an expertise in. And then all of my programs are centered around helping women, mostly, because that's just who comes to me, dissolve childhood relational trauma, ancestral and past life trauma, so that they can start businesses and have the life that they want to have. And just, my methodology is very comprehensive and efficient to help people create permanent change in their lives.
And were you always spiritual? And what happened exactly to kind of draw you into using breathwork for yourself initially?
I think I was always spiritual. Like I was always when I was a kid, I had different like experiences where I would see things, or I was just very psychic. I don't think I really knew what to do with it, but I was always interested in like what lies beneath the surface, or like the unseen things. And then when I was 19, it was my first year of college, and I was struggling with an eating disorder and anxiety, and I was kind of just looking for answers as to why I was struggling. And so I discovered yoga, and then I started working at a yoga studio, and that's where I discovered breath work, because they had a breath work class there, and I did it, and it just initially it didn't have a huge effect on me, but I just knew that it would. Like I knew I was supposed to do it, so I just started doing every single training that was available, every single class that was available, and I just dove into it head first, and it really helped me in a huge way just recover from my eating disorder and lessen my anxiety, and also just understand myself in a completely different way.
Mm. What's what's the connection there? You said you're struggling with an eating disorder, and breathworks for some would feel like I don't understand how that could work. Can you speak to that a little bit? Why was it beneficial?
Yeah, well, because breath work helps you access the subconscious mind and it helps you access your emotions. So, usually something like an eating disorder or any kind of, diagnosis is a symptom of a deeper issue, a deeper belief, a deeper trauma, a deeper belief about yourself that has to be healed and reconciled, and breath work is a great way to access that. So for me, I was able to access, some of the ways that I was operating that were based in, my relationships with my parents and the way that I felt about myself and my need to, be perfect or control everything. And it was a lot of, trauma around not only my relationships with my parents, but also ancestral trauma, just things I took on from them. So breathwork really helped you access these deeper levels of the subconscious that you just wouldn't be aware of normally, and then have a greater perspective as to why you feel the way that you feel, why you do the things that you do, and what happened in your childhood as that creates that feeling or that result.
Mm. Can you talk about your method, specifically the metamorphosis method, and how is
Yeah.
that different from other style of breath work?
Yeah, so it's not just breath work. So the breath work that I use is called conscious connected breathing, and it is a very simple and gentle style of breathing. It's just in and out through the mouth in a circular pattern. So you're just moving energy in the body, you're just moving air in the body, but it's the difference is it's really about dropping into your body's natural rhythm. So a lot of breath work that's out there is about, kind of forcing it, or this like three-part breath, or kind of like different ways of breathing in a more forceful way that it can be really helpful for some people. For me, it just created more anxiety. So the breath work that I use is much more about allowing your body to do what it naturally does. So I believe the body has a natural intelligence and it naturally wants to heal. It's just about giving it the space and container to do that. And that's what the breath work does. It's just about dropping into your body's natural rhythm, your body's natural way of breathing and moving energy, so that what needs to heal, what needs to be released, and what needs to shift can shift. So that's kind of the subconscious somatic component of my methodology. And then I also have a bunch of trauma healing tools that I've created. One of them is energy work. I teach how to do like an energy work process to shift your energy. And then the other piece of it is my trauma healing tools, where I teach you how to reconcile the relationships with your parents, the circumstances around your birth, which I call birth story, and also your relationships with your siblings. And it's all about how to recognize patterns and draw parallels between the relational dynamics you experience in childhood and then what you're experiencing now in your current relationships or in your business or career, and then how those two things are related. And then I have a process of accessing the inner child, where you pinpoint and acknowledge like where the wound came from, what it is that you felt inside of your relationships with your parents, and then how that inner child is kind of driving the bus now in your life, and then how to acknowledge and heal and reconcile that wounding, and like developing a relationship with the inner child, and then being able to use that information in your life moving forward to give you a context to navigate triggers and circumstances that come up, instead of thinking it's about this person did this to me, or why does this keep happening to me, and realizing that it's actually a reflection of something deeper that's going on within yourself, so that you're able to navigate life in a much different way and move forward in the way you desire, instead of feeling like you're kind of recreating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people don't realize that they have trauma. Like you said,
Oh, yeah.
you had an eating disorder, you didn't know where it came from, and you probably didn't recognize that you had a trauma that you needed to heal. How does one know, like, they have past traumas that are affecting them now? Like, how do they begin to identify that they have things that they need to heal?
Um, well, I would say most people do, right? It's just always not very obvious. But the way you would know is if there is something in your life that you want to create and it's not happening, or you feel stuck, or you keep recreating the same circumstances over and over again. Like, for example, if you keep getting involved with the same kind of partner over and over again, and you keep, like, people will be like, oh, I just picked the wrong men. But it's like, no, it's just there's something for you to heal and reconcile that's being mirrored back to you inside of that relationship, right? So that would be a sure way that you would know that there's something from childhood that needs to be reconciled. Also, a lot of the women I work with will feel stuck in areas of career or business. So maybe they want to start a business, or they want to put themselves out there in some way, but they're afraid, or they feel they keep second guessing themselves, or they don't feel clear on what it is that they're supposed to do. All of that stuff would just be a symptom of a deeper trauma that needs to be reconciled. Also, any kind of symptom like anxiety or depression, or anything that surfaces in that way, is a symptom of a deeper trauma. So I would say there's a many different telltale signs that there's something to look at, but it's typically anything in your life that's not working in the way that you want it to, is just an invitation or an opportunity for you to look at something that happened in childhood and reconcile it, so that you can create a different way of seeing the world and a different experience for yourself.
Would you say breath work is something that's beneficial if you do it daily, or is it something whenever you're going through stresses and the challenges?
I mean, it's both. Like, it really depends on on what you want to get out of it. I think that it's something that can be beneficial if you're just doing it on your own. Yeah, it can be beneficial to do it every day, although it's not something you need to do every day. But if you really want to get the full benefits of it, meaning like going deep into your deeper emotions, your subconscious beliefs, and what happened to you in childhood, then I definitely recommend working with somebody else to support you with it, because those are things that it's really hard to pinpoint and recognize on your own, even if you are doing breath work. So I'd say breath work is a very supportive tool to grow and get momentum in the way that you want. But it really depends. Like, if you're somebody who's like, okay, I just want to sleep better, then do breath work before you go to bed, and you probably will sleep better, right? But you can also go a whole lot deeper with it, and it can be a tool for total transformation as well. So it just really depends on what your goal is.
Okay. What are some habits or rituals that keep you grounded when you're, in a time of crisis, or you're overcoming certain challenges or traumas?
I mean, it really depends on the time in my life. There's been different things at different times. I would say definitely breath work. I always rely on that. And for me, movement is really impactful. Like, I love to do certain types of exercise and learn really disciplined things. Like, right now, I'm learning this ancient Indian martial art that's really obscure, because I'm like really into like being disciplined with things and learning things that are really hard. So, but also just like walking. I'm really into walking. I feel like that helps me so much just move energy and clear my head and bring me back to like a homeostasis. Um, Journaling, that's something that I have gone in and out of, and that I always recommend to all of my clients, because it really helps you process emotions and thoughts that you probably didn't realize you had until you start journaling. And then also having a support system of people that you can rely on and talk to and lean on. I think that's been super important for me to have a few really amazing support people in my life, colleagues and friends that I can lean on when I'm going through something. That's really important.
You mentioned energy work a couple of times, and it's something that I talked about on this podcast a couple of times, but it's always good to get different perspectives. So, when you're helping people with energy work, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so energy work is really interesting because it's so simple that I think sometimes people can get confused about what it is, but it's really about tuning in and working with your own energy. And the coolest thing about energy work is it's like the ultimate way of taking your power back. Because if you are able to do energy work on yourself, it really means that you are in full control and have full agency over how you feel and how you're energetically responding to everything in your life. So, the way that I use energy work with people is I help people ground, I help them connect to source, connect to their higher selves, and then I'll do some sort of clearing with the energy work. So I'll tune into, whatever it is that they're wanting to clear or release. And I will, I have a whole process that I do to help clear that. And then I also, because of the laws of energy, when you take something away, you have to fill the void with something else. So then I will fill their field with, what it is that they're wanting to bring in, whether it's, power or worthiness or deservingness or, their fullest expression or their gifts or whatever it is. And I will, do something where I fill up their field with that. And I have a bunch of other things that I do. I've like created my own energy work steps, but it's really about tuning into the energy field, seeing what is there to be cleared, and also just being able to tune into different blocks and different things that could be getting in the way of somebody fully accessing their power or their authenticity, and then being able to, really use your words powerfully to create a shift in someone's energy. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's very important to understand about energy work is it's all about the way that you word something and your intention behind it, because words are really powerful. And in the astral realm, in the ether, when you say something, it automatically exists. And that's how we work with energy work, right? It's like the words mean everything. So it's important to be really precise and powerful with your words and also the intention behind them to create an energy in someone's field. And I think with energy work, the biggest thing too is being open to it. Because when someone is really open to it, it works really, really well. But if somebody's closed off, then it's really not going to work as well because they're not being receptive and open and like allowing themselves to feel what's happening. Because it's all about feeling and it's all about being open to and receiving the experience so that you can create that energy shift within yourself. And, I truly believe that the most powerful way to use energy work is on yourself in each moment. Sorry, my wind just blew the door shut. Is on yourself in each moment. So it's great to be able to have somebody else do energy work on you. That's amazing. But where the rubber meets the road is when you can do it on yourself in the moment when you need it, and that to me is the most powerful thing because instead of, allowing yourself to get triggered or spiral or react to something in a way that's going to completely throw you off, you can do energy work and shift your energy immediately in the moment so that you can bring yourself back to a place of neutrality or a place of presence or come back to being in your own power.
Yeah, because it only takes a few seconds to kind of spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Even simple things as road rage or anything like that. It's just if you don't react to it, then you don't, you know, spiral off into something else.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like are some of like the most common things that people are struggling with uh, that you've helped?
So mostly I would say it's women who are wanting to start a business or put themselves out there in some way, like do their work in the world that they know they're meant to do, but they have something that is stopping them, something that they're afraid of, or they're doubting themselves, or they're confused about, what to do first or how to move forward. So they're kind of in this like purgatory place, I call it. And those are most of the women that I work with. I mean, I work with some women that are just more wanting to go down the personal growth path that aren't necessarily interested in starting a business. So there are those people as well. But I would say most people that I work with are wanting to move forward in some way. Usually it's a business, but they have something that keeps getting in the way, that keeps stopping them. And they are have realized that it's not necessarily about anything out here, and it's about something that needs to be reconciled from childhood, and that's what I help them do. And then once they go through my process, then they usually will have a ton of clarity about how to move forward, and they will feel the confidence and the ability to move forward. And then, they do. And then the women who work with me for a long time, I'll walk them through starting their business, running their business, growing their business, all of that. And it's funny, I didn't necessarily set out to like help people with their business, but it just ends up being a side effect of the work that I do. And because I've also created a business, a successful business in a relatively short amount of time, people are asking me for that help as well. But my main focus is the trauma piece and helping people dissolve that childhood relational trauma so that they can do what it is they want to do in life, and they're not feeling like they're in this purgatory place.
Mm. You mentioned earlier, someone has to be receptive to the energy work that you're doing, or it doesn't work. Have you come across an instance where someone wasn't exactly receptive and um, you've had to either do it again, or, you know, do you have an example of someone who wasn't receptive?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can definitely feel like, for example, like anybody who comes to me is going to be somewhat open because they're like choosing to do this work, right? But there are varying degrees of that. Some people think they're open, but then when it comes down to it, they're actually very closed off. So I think with somebody like that, usually it just takes time, right? Because for whatever reason, they have a lot of walls up or they don't feel safe. So it's just going to take more time to kind of like chip away at those walls so that they can open up. And I find that for, women like that, it just takes longer. And then it'll take longer to kind of get to some of the deeper traumas or emotions that are underneath the surface because they're just more closed off and they've just built up so many walls or defense mechanisms. And that's like not a judgment on them. It's like a thing that people do. So I think it just is a matter of keeping at it. Like I've had some women who I've worked with who are more closed off that just don't, they just they get to a certain point and they just can't go past there. And I have other women who I've been working with for years now who started out being very closed off and it was hard to kind of get in there. And now, after 2.5 years, we've had a lot of breakthroughs and they've really shifted. So I think it's just a matter of time as long as you keep going with it.
Well, Elise, it's been a very enlightening conversation. Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with before we close it out?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess I would just say, the importance of this work and like exploring your childhood stuff because usually that's the thing that's stopping you from doing what you want to do. It's usually not anything else. And if you think it's something else, it might be that thing, but it's really the stuff that happened in childhood. So I would just say that it's like so important to look at things from this lens, especially if there's something that's not working in your life.
Great. Well, Thank you, Alyse, for being on the show. And for the listeners, I'll have her information in the description as well as ours. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email americangypsy@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Peace.